All right, so we're going to continue with solving equations. So to solve this equation, the first step is to see if you can distribute or combine like terms. So here's the equal sign, and if I look on the left side, we can't put these together because one has an x and one doesn't. So step one, we skip. There is nothing to simplify in this problem, like the previous two problems in this lesson. So then I'm going to cover up the variable. So I'm going to highlight where the variable is, and I want to get that number next to it here to go away. So if I have a positive 19, I need to take 19 away from both sides. And whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other to keep it balanced. So I have a negative 21, and I'm adding a negative 19 on this side. So I have now negative 40 on the right side, and I have 2/5 x on the left. Now, when this is all by itself, the variable and the coefficient, then the very last step is to divide by the coefficient, the number in front of the variable. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 2/5. However, that could look confusing because there's already a fraction, which a fraction bar and a divide look similar because we use a fraction bar to mean divide. So instead of dividing, what we're going to do, if the coefficient, the number in front of the variable, is a fraction, instead of dividing, you're going to multiply. It's just a style. We like to, instead of when you have a fraction already in the problem dividing, instead we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal is when you take the fraction and flip it over. So we're going to multiply both sides of this problem by 5/2. The reason why you do that is because if I take 5 and then on the calculator, ABC is the fraction bar. It looks really weird, but that's the fraction bar on this calculator. So if I take 5/2 times it by 2/5, it makes 1. That's why this works. This is going to go away because this makes 1x. And when there's a 1 in front of a variable and it just means multiply, it's just 1x. We don't have to put a 1 in front of an x. So that's why we say that many of you say cancels out. It means it goes away because there's a 1 there and we don't have to write it. So then on this side, we have negative 40 times 5/2, which is negative 100. Now, just to review multiplying fractions without a calculator, you guys know that you're allowed to use this calculator in this class, a scientific calculator, no graphing calculators. This is the version of the calculator that I will show in videos. But in classes after this class, some teachers will allow graphing calculators, the really big ones. And then they'll have parts of a calculator, or I'm sorry, parts of a test without a calculator. I allow you to use this calculator on every single test in this class. But I want to prepare you also for when you leave my class. And again, some teachers may have no calculator portions. So let's just quickly review how to multiply fractions right here. That's also the nice thing that this is Math 126 is that there is that time to do a little review like this. So when we're multiplying with fractions, you can either go straight across. So you could do negative 40 times 5, which is negative 200. And then 1 times 2 is 2. And then divide these and you get negative 100. Now, if the numbers were higher, it's much simpler if you cross simplify. So with fractions, you're allowed to simplify the numbers diagonally. So you look at the 2 and the 40 and ask yourself, what goes into 2 and 40? And 2 does. So if I divide 2 by 2, this now becomes a 1. And if I divide 40 by 2, this now becomes 20. And then the 1 and the 5 can go together, and nothing goes into both 1 and 5 other than 1. So then if we go straight across, we have negative 20 times 5, and negative 20 times 5 is negative 100. And then we have 1 times 1 is just 1. There's nothing here. Okay, so that was our quick little review of multiplying with fractions. All right, let's take a look at our next equation here. So let's get our steps here. Our first step is to simplify, so see if there's anything to distribute or like terms. So if we look at this problem here, step 1, we're going to skip. Step 2, I'm going to cover up the variable. So I'm going to cover up the variable term. And then if there's something next to it, so this plus 4, we're going to do minus 4 on both sides to make that zero out. Oh, now I have to do 5, 6 minus 4. So I can continue this problem just like I'm showing here by getting the variable by itself, but now I have to remember, if I wasn't allowed a calculator, I'd have to remember how to do 5, 6 minus 4, how to subtract with fractions, and then I'm going to have to multiply by negative 3 over 2. So you can continue this problem this way, or the way I'm going to show you is called clearing the denominator. So the method I'm about to show you, I would use when there is more than one fraction in the problem. So this one has 2. So if there's just one fraction in the problem, I would do it the normal way using these 3 steps here. If there's more than one fraction in the problem, the method I use is I ask myself, I look at the denominators of the fraction, and I ask myself, what can 3 go into and what can 6 go into? So what's the common denominator for 3 and 6? So there's a lot of numbers you can use. You could use 12, right? 3 and 6 both go into 12. You could use 18. 18 would work. 6 and 3 go into 18. But the best choice would be the least one, which is 6. They both go into 6. So you could use 18, you could use 12, you could use 6, you could use 24, but I'm going to pick 6. So I want to multiply every single term in this problem by 6. So every term, so this is a term, this is a term, and this is a term. I'm going to multiply everything by 6. And the reason why I'm using 6 is because now I have a fraction problem here. And just like I showed you here, you can cross simplify. I'm going to do that here. So I'm going to cross simplify and ask myself, so remember there's a 1 here, what can go into 3 and 6? This number, because I picked 6, this number goes into 6 twice. And then now there's nothing left down here because this number went into there, so it became a 1. So the denominator is gone here, and all you're left with is 2 times negative 2. So 2 times negative 2, and then I'm going to bring down the p. Okay, now here, this is not a fraction, so I'm just going to multiply it just like normal. 6 times 4 is 24. And then here, it's a fraction, so I can cross simplify. And because these are both 6s, 6 goes into 6 once, 6 goes into 6 once, so they like go away. They make 1, and all I'm left with is 5 times 1, which is 5. And now there are no fractions to look at. So again, this process of getting rid of fractions from the start is called clearing the denominator. And that is where you multiply everything in the problem by the common denominator. The least one is the best. Now I can follow these steps because there's no fractions. So I'm going to simplify, which I can't. Then I'm going to highlight where the variable is. And I want to get rid of this plus 24. So we're going to go ahead and subtract 24. And then we have 5 minus 24. Or that is also, I could enter it in as 5 minus 24. Or I could do 5 plus I added a negative 24 on. You still get negative 19. And then we're going to divide both sides. That's the last step. Divide both sides by negative 4. And 4 doesn't go into 19. So this answer is going to be a fraction because 4 doesn't go evenly into 19. We have a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and then nothing goes into both of these. So I'm just going to leave it as 19/4. Now if I use the calculator, negative 19 divided by negative 4, clearly the answer is positive. There's no negative here. And we get a decimal, but remember the directions to these problems say no decimals. So then I'm going to click second, because it's the blue key, and the FD is in blue. So that's why I had to click that before this. And then it has a 4. And then this little U means like space. It means 4 and 3/4. So this is called a mixed number. Now if I go back and I click the second button and then the ABC button right here, it's saying change the mixed number. See how there's an A, a B, and a C? So change the mixed number to just 2 numbers like this. So if I click equal, now that's the improper version of the answer. So either of these answers would be okay because the directions say to leave your answer as an integer, which this is not an integer, but it is a simplified fraction. Simplified fraction means nothing can go into the numerator and the denominator. So both of these are fractions. This is an improper, this is a mixed number. So either of those would be okay. But if you put 4.75, it would be marked wrong because you didn't follow the directions.